What is up? What is up, boxing world? What is up, FightHype family? It's your boy back once again from the high-tech headquarters in Las Vegas, here in the office, with another FightHype live. And it's been a interesting week for your boy here at the channel, but just gotta mute this real quick. And yeah, let's get going, man. We got a lot to talk about today. Inoue Fulton will be later in the day. I'll probably be joined to kick that off. He won't be sticking around longer than 10 or 15 minutes, but probably a pretty special guest at maybe around 5 to 5:30. I'll kick off all the Inoue Fulton stuff of that great fight between two, great fighters, or fighters that are, Inoue is already a great bantamweight, and Fulton's very, very good, trying to show that he is great and knocking him off. But we'll get to all of that later on. But what's up, chat? We gotta get to first things first. Crawford and Spence had their media days out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I attended both of them. They both looked very good. I still favor Terence Crawford, but they both looked incredibly good, and I'm not fully convinced Crawford wins this fight based off seeing both of their workouts, but he did. Let's go ahead and get right to it then. Let me say what's up to Red. Let me say what's up to Caleb. What's up, Marky? Yeah, Caleb, watch it afterwards if you can. What's up, Fire in My Bones? What's up to all my regulars in the hat? Charles N. What's going on, Charles N., a.k.a. Face. Red, again, good to see you. And let's get it started, man. So we'll start with Terence Crawford first, and then we'll look over at Errol Spence. So here we go. So Terence Crawford will display here a little bit more upper body agility than Errol Spence. He'll also display better hand speed. Once he switches southpaw here and starts shadow boxing as a southpaw, he rips off a couple of nice combinations that really show off the hand speed advantage that he has over Spence. And then this was interesting because throughout all of his workout here in this ring, between his mitts, between the shadow boxing, you saw a lot of Terence Crawford not up on his bike, not using a whole lot of lateral movement. And we'll see later in this film study that actually Errol Spence was showing more lateral movement when he was working out in the ring than Terence Crawford. And Spence is thought of, at least early in this fight, to be the aggressor. But Spence has also said he's expected Terence Crawford to start a little faster than he normally does. And if the training's any indication, of course I understand it's just media day training. These guys could be holding back, they could be decoying some of the things they have planned, but I saw Crawford on the front foot quite a lot in all his different workouts for this media day. So you'll see that as we take a look at it. Crawford, to me, looked pretty good in the orthodox stance. He doesn't box or get nearly as many knockouts in his championship fights as an orthodox fighter. Most of his best stuff comes as a southpaw, but for the first time fighting a southpaw since Felix Diaz, I wonder if he'll fight more in this stance right here against Spence. And then with his legs, I haven't really seen him have the kind of legs he... Turn down the video. Oh, my bad. Let me turn down this video audio a little bit, chat. Okay. Hopefully that's a little better. Put this down a little bit. Get our audio right. Damn ads. 1 second, chat. Yo. I think we're good now. Let me know. Okay, cool. Sweet. Later. On the fly production right there. Charles N. saying Bud looked great the other day. And I got a great story to tell you guys in a little bit here about Isao Diegas, who really enlightened me on part of what makes Crawford a great counterpuncher. So there right there, that hand speed you saw right there, that is the hand speed advantage over Errol Spence. Spence is not slow at all, but He doesn't flash that kind of quick-handed combination like that right there. That right there is an advantage for that right there. It is again. Like I said, once he switched southpaw and did a couple of these quick flurries, there's three of them that quickly flash you the hand speed advantage he'll have. Here it is again. It's about 4 or 5 punches in a second, and then here it is again. So that right there is the hand speed advantage for Terence Crawford. Errol Spence has great timing, and he throws everything hard and with great placement, but he can't reel off a 4 or 5 punch combination. I'll show it one more time. He can't reel off a 4 or 5 punch combination rapid fire in the way that Terence Crawford has. He can do, now we'll see in Spence's film study, he does things better than Crawford does, certain things, but the hand speed advantage here is highlighted for Crawford. He will not be able to throw that in the fight, says Samuel Washington. You know, we will see. Who is faster, Porter or Crawford? Good question. I think Crawford's a little faster. Porter was fast. Porter was faster than Spence. Styles make fights. Some of Porter's attributes that Spence doesn't possess gave Crawford issues, like the in and out movement and getting underneath power shots, getting real low on the inside and then springing up with right hands. Spence is a better overall fighter than Sean is, but Sean had certain attributes that Spence didn't have that gave Crawford problems. And you know, as the saying goes, styles make fights. There's that quick, look at that, there's that quick counter punching. And I'm going to tell a quick story about that very quiet, underrated man working with Terence Crawford. And there's the upper body movement too that Errol Spence and Derek James gave a great breakdown to DBN, Dante's Boxing Nation, years ago, explaining how head movement is almost a little overrated. If you put a jab on a guy while he's using maybe excessive head movement, you don't got to move your head. You keep the jab on him. It was a great interview that Derek did a couple years back with DBN. But even as great a point as Derek made, there's always a place for upper body agility and upper body movement in boxing, and that's another advantage, like the hand speed, for Terence Crawford. He has better upper body agility and upper body movement, and you'll see that right here. I want to see that quick counter again too. There's that upper body movement, shifty, and then quick with the hand speed. There's this one counter he just did. That's quick. That's a counter puncher. And that brings me to a point I want to highlight right there about that man, Isao Diegas. Isao, I hope you don't mind. It was technically off the record, but it was nothing, you know, that should be a problem. So I go over to Isao Diegas yesterday after Terence's workout. I go over to him yesterday during the workout. After the workout, and I'd go up to him just to say, hey man, just want to give you your shine. I know you're not looking for it or anything. You seem like a very low ego, humble guy, but just so you know, I know you've been around this whole time and have been just as active in Terence's camp, it would appear, as even Bomac or Red or anyone else. He plays just as valuable a role as anyone else in their team. It is a team effort that trains Crawford. It's not just one train, you know. And I said, so do you think the counterpunching, you know, and so we're talking about what a great counterpuncher Terence is, like he just showed right there with that quick left-hand counter. And he tells me, ever since he was a kid, I've always worked with him on the mitts on counterpunching. That's our thing. And I told him, I think he's the best counterpuncher since Juan Manuel Marquez. And even though they're two different styles, I mean, Terence has long arms and there's plenty of differences between Crawford and Marquez. But I've always thought there's something similar about them in that they're these offensively prolific counterpunchers. They're not the step back pop shot counterpuncher. They're the put 3, 4, 5 together once they get cooking, and they don't start fights particularly well. And shout out to my man BT, the head honcho at FightHype. He brought up a great point when I talked to him about counterpunching last night. He goes, well, of course the counterpuncher is not going to start well because he has to download the data. He has to get a beat on the other guy. He has to let the other guy throw his shots in order to get that rhythm and get a look at the angle that's available and all those things. So it stands to reason that sometimes counterpunchers don't get off to a good start. But anyways, Isao told me Juan Manuel Marquez is the fighter that he studied the most, and his movements he implemented on the pads with Terence Crawford. And then he saw Juan Manuel Marquez about a week or two ago at a show, maybe it was in Mexico, and he talked to Juan Manuel about Terence, and Juan Manuel regarded what a great counterpuncher Terence Crawford is. So just to really, if you're a hardcore boxing guy like me, I just, that was very cool for me. Mayweather is the best counterpuncher in the last 25 years, says Bryant Williams. I'll agree with that. But Mayweather was also this pure boxer, incredible athlete. Marquez got the rep as just this pure counterpuncher because, but I'll agree with that Mayweather is the best counterpuncher. Mayweather and Bernard Hopkins and Juan Manuel Marquez and now Terence Crawford, are the four guys that come to mind for me when I think of best counterpunchers in the last 20 years. But anyways, I just thought that was a great little insight that, in fact, this man right here, Isao Diegas, he studied Juan Manuel Marquez, so it's no accident that Terence Crawford is a great counterpuncher. I'm not saying it's just because Isao Diegas and because he studies Juan Manuel Marquez, but I always thought there was something similar about those two, and he kind of put my finger on it. So now, see, Isao Diegas, he ain't trying to do interviews. He's not going to say that on camera, and I hope he doesn't mind me, saying it now, but I think it's a really illuminating, kind of cool thing if you're a hardcore boxing head. The best defensive fighter of all time, yes, in terms of if you're talking Floyd, along with Purnell, Willie Pep, and a few others. But there's that upper body movement of Terence Crawford that Errol Spence virtually did not display at all. I know he'll show it somewhat in his fights, but he doesn't use a lot of excessive upper body movement. But now here's Terence working in that orthodox stance with Bomac. And again, I thought he looked very good as an orthodox fighter, and that we might see that stance more against Spence, who's a southpaw. First southpaw he's fought since Felix Diaz. When he switches southpaw, it gives him that angle, and now that angle might have to be available as a righty against a lefty as opposed to switching to being a lefty against a righty. We'll see. A little stepping around by Terence, but not a whole lot of big-time lateral movement. Actually, again, you'll see that Spence showed more lateral movement than Crawford did, and all Crawford's doing here is just pivoting off a little bit, stepping off, little half steps back, half steps to the side, lots of little angles stepping off to the left and to the right, and that's all good stuff. Sometimes you only need to make the guy miss by an inch, and if you're using too much excessive lateral movement, then you're at a range to counter after you make a miss. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but Terence Crawford 5-6 years ago used that lateral movement more, and maybe it's a part of his game plan to do this right here: step to the side, make him miss by an inch, make him pay, sharp shoot him while more or less engaging with him throughout, not trying to move too much laterally and limit the exchanges. And I expect Terence to do that early, but maybe he won't. Because I would think Terence early on wouldn't be that concerned about losing the early part of the fight, take his time, download information, but Spence seems to think he's going to start faster. And all he showed us here wasn't a whole lot of being on his bike, as they would say. And people would say being on the bike. They usually mean that if a guy's straight up running, but I'm using it in a different way. I just mean using that bicycle motion up like how he did Victor Postal and Jeff Horn. So now he's southpaw, showing a good jab out of both stances, but Spence has a better jab. But Crawford has a good jab out of both stances, and he's got them little angles and little chopping shots, and he could throw punches from weird angles. Spence throws everything textbook and straight and fundamental, but Crawford will get a little more creative and dynamic with his punch selection. But Spence does have the better fundamentals, we'll see. But there again is that little bit of that upper body shiftiness from Crawford. And a good jab out of both stances. Nice feint by Crawford right there. I love it when he flares his elbow on his feints. That's the Crawford feint. Right here. Yep. Less exaggerated feint the second time. But see, Crawford's working on the inside here a lot. I mean, that's just the workout. Like, that's what that workout's meant to do with that bag. You're not supposed to be moving around from the guy, and but actually, that's not true. They could make you move backwards while holding that and taking it to you and make you work on punching off the back foot, but good little... And that's what Crawford's going to need right there sometimes. Not to out-jab Spence, but to jab with him and set up a little something behind it. Right there. More like a move like that. I don't know if you're going to see him out-jab Spence necessarily, but match the jab here and there and find something off of it. One jab here, and then he finds an angle off of it. See, right there, he's when he throws that jab, he knows something's coming back, and he's in position for the counter, like a straight left hand. So right there, jab with Spence, something's coming back, straight, and then he's still in position to counterpunch. Spence does the same thing. Keeps you on the end of the jab, where he could see you and see what's coming. And if you open up a little too wide or reckless, then he'll tag you with a straight left hand down the pipe too. Crawford changes the speed on his punches a lot more than Spence. Spence throws everything at one speed, and there's a benefit to that. Everything hurts. Inoue and Canelo, Tank will take a little something off the lead hand, the jab. He'll range fine with that to set up bombs. But even for the most part, Tank, Inoue, Canelo, these are guys that throw everything hard. And that means everything hurts. And when it lands, it scores really well to the judges and leaves an effect on the opponent because they're not just touching a guy, they're sitting down on everything. And that's how Errol Spence is. He'll take a little something off the jab. He'll vary the jab up a little bit, but for the most part, even with the jab, everything's one speed and hard. And that means everything's hurts while he's touching you. But a guy like Terence Crawford is able to change the speed on his punches and surprise you with a certain suddenness, a certain burst and explosiveness. Rio Yogi, I will get to your super chat in just a minute, brother. Great question asking, why is Spence's jab considered better than Crawford's? Also, how do you measure a quality jab? And again, I think Crawford has a good jab. I don't think he's as concerned with the jab as Spence is. The jab is more to set up the counter shots and the combinations here and there, the angles. Spence is trying to jab to hurt you, to close that eye socket, to bust you up, and still set up his offense behind it. Crawford with some catch and shooting. I like the upper body movement better from Terence Crawford. I'm not sure I like his catch and shoots always better than Errol Spence's. I think Errol Spence is a little bit more disciplined in getting his hands back to the right position at times. But Terence, with that superior speed, creativity, and upper body agility, it doesn't need it as much as Spence does, who's functioning off that. The quick combinations by Crawford. And let's give the ad a moment here, ladies and gentlemen. So, you're going to see between these two fighters that when Spence hits the pad, everything is thud, thud, thud. And everything Crawford touches on the heavy bag, on the pads, it doesn't have that consistent thud that Spence has, but he has that suddenness. He has that sudden explosiveness that can come at any point in the fight. And it's the shot you don't see coming, that usually knocks you out. And Crawford gets you with a shot off an angle, quick hand speed that you don't see coming, in between your punches usually, counterpuncher. And so even though Errol Spence has heavier hands than him, and punch for punch, consistency, punch for punch, Spence is the heavier handed guy, probably punches a little harder, punch for punch, but Crawford at any moment can dial it up with a burst, with a combination, with snap on the end of the shot. He may not be as heavy-handed as Spence, but he's got that snap, that a little bit of explosiveness of speed and power combined at the end of the shot. Watching this again, I'm tempted to say Crawford might be a little more squared up than Spence. Southpaws are usually very good at only giving you half of their body. Spence, too, on the mitts, looked like a better body puncher. But Crawford, again, more dynamic, more creative, more unpredictable with his punch selection. Nice body shot there, though, by Crawford. Not saying he can't do that. Not saying he can't do that, but he's not as committed to it as Spence is. There's another quick little, those little sneakers he's got, like that little right hand to the body in between Isao Diegas' punch. That's that counter punching. Right here's that's a sneaky right hand to the body. And Crawford can be sneaky with it in between your punches. See how every time Isao is throwing is well, not every time, but at times, he's throwing a little something at him to make him catch. Not much there, but. I feel like we're giving Isao Diegas the biggest shine right now. He deserves it, man. Nice double left hand there by Crawford. Spence was throwing a beautiful double left hand on the mitts with Derek James. So you see Crawford, quicker hand speed on the combinations, quicker with the combinations, more shifty upper body movement than Errol Spence. Not a whole lot of movement from Terence Crawford, and you guys have heard me on these lives say over and over again, I give the edge to Terence Crawford to win this fight. But I do think, you guys have heard me say this several times, I do think he's a little bit like Kobe Bryant in 2010, Michael Jordan in 1998, where you're still that guy. You're still, they were still Kobe and Jordan, but their legs weren't what they were for Jordan in 93, in 91, for Kobe in 03 and 06. By 2010, 98, they weren't jumping out of the gym like they were when they were younger. And Terence Crawford, in a similar fashion, he's still that guy. He's still TC, he's still Bud Crawford, but his legs, they weren't what they were when those guys were younger. The old timers would always say, the legs are the first thing to go, and the power's the last thing to leave. And at 35, going on 36, I don't see as much life in Terence Crawford's legs as I used to at 140 and early at 147. Now, part of that is probably very much on purpose. Is he's knocking guys out, so why keep away from him? And he's a great counterpuncher, so let's not be on my bike and not be in position to make him miss or to make him pay with the counterpunching. But since he's made that adjustment at welterweight, he's been getting hit more. He got hit with right hand. I went back and watched the Kavyauskas fight. That was a knockdown off that right hand. Jose Benavidez was able to touch him with some good shots at long range. Even Avanesian landed the right hand. So Crawford, he has been perfect in terms of scoring knockouts at welterweight, but I do think he's been getting hit more, and part of that is the adjustment in style. He's not using, there's that shifty upper body movement and punching off angles beautifully. But it remains to be seen against Spence, that heavy jab that can break facial tissue. Can Crawford, can he hold up to maybe having to go through 3 or 4 rounds? Because if he's going to fight this style, he's going to get touched by Spence. He's been getting touched in his fights, and Spence is better than all these guys who have been touching him. Can he, you know, how will he hold up? And beautiful uppercut right there by Terence. Beautiful. And that's the dynamic, that is the dynamic, creative punch selection of Terence Crawford off of little angles, in between angles, that make me favor him. See, little shift off, and then this uppercut is damn sneaky. Unorthodox shot right there. That's swiping left to the body. Punching off the angle, and then that little sneaky left uppercut. What a sneaky shot. But if he's gonna fight like this and stay in front of Spence, Gervonta Davis better be wrong. Gervonta Davis kept saying the real difference in this fight, and I know Gervonta is fellow PBC with Tank or with Errol and everything, so you think to yourself, of course he's going to pick Spence, but you do got to listen when elite fighters speak on the fights. You gotta heed their words a little bit. You could take it with a grain of salt, but still heed it. And Gervonta saying the difference in the fight is going to be Terence's glass shield against Errol's metal shield in terms of punch resistance, and if Crawford doesn't take a shot as good as Spence, it could be a problem trying to fight with this style he's been fighting with at welterweight, getting all these knockouts with. But just beautiful work on the mitts here with Red. Red got a different style of mitts than Isao Diegas, and Bomac has a different style, so it's a trainer by committee, as we know. But beautiful turns off, 2 little knife and body shots right there, back on his jab. Nice jab to the body. Sneaky jab to the body, too. It's not telegraphed. He doesn't even have to dip down to get it off. He could throw it upright. Right on the money. Yeah, so that means it's not telegraphed. He doesn't have to bend the knees to get it off or nothing like that. Which makes it, again, harder to anticipate when he's going to throw. Crawford's the more unpredictable, dynamic fighter than Spence. Spence is bigger, younger, fundamentally sound, more active, better body puncher, better jab, but Crawford is shiftier, faster, better, you know, the counter puncher. I came away genuinely thinking this is going to be a hell of a fight after watching both guys. So then Crawford just burned out on the heavy bag, and Spence's heavy bag work looked a little bit better than Bud's. But I thought Bud's mitt work was a little more, maybe, you know, not better, but a little more nuanced. Bud more fluid than Errol Spence. Spence is a big Texas bull, a little stiff up top. So, a lot of you guys know I'm a big Tupac fan, and I can't lie, I got a little hyped when he started burning out to Hail Mary and training to all the different Shed So Many Tears. He rapped, he was rapping Shed So Many Tears. Very cool moment to be at. And then Errol in his media day had some Jay-Z playing, and I'm like, yeah, that's like the antithesis to Tupac. That's perfect. I still got that super chat I got to get to about Spence's jab. Don't think I forgot you. I'm just waiting until we wrap up. Here's where you see Crawford's in ridiculous. Both guys are in great shape. But I had never seen a man's 8-pack come out through a sweating shirt. You know, I don't. Yeah, that's crazy right there. Look at that. Yeah, Terence, your abs are showing. Yeah, I had to make that remark, but like, dude. But yeah, man, 8-pack showing through it, and you know, so that's how we'll look at it for Crawford. And we'll motion on over to Errol Spence's workout now. But to the super chat that asked, why is it considered that Spence has a better jab? Well, he's heavier handed than Crawford, so it's a little bit more of a thudding shot, and he's just busier with it. He's a little busier with it, a little bit more dominant behind it, and a little bit more, he places more of an emphasis on it than Crawford does. Crawford has a good jab out of both stances, but he's not as heavy-handed as Errol and Boots. When Errol and Boots jab, you hear that thud, thud every time. Crawford has a good jab. It's a sharp piston jab. It's not, you know, but it doesn't have that thudding impact that starts to break facial tissue and even physically hurt a guy. Now, I know you'd say, well, he kind of landed a jab that knocked out Kell Brook, but it was a very short. It's one of the reasons I give the edge to Crawford is he can throw these unique styles of punches, these chopping short shots, these in-between shots. In between, literally, is it a hook? Is it an uppercut? Is it a jab? Is it a right hook? Whereas Spence is throwing everything textbook, you know, jab, straight left hand, right hook, everything is textbook. Crawford will throw something a little unorthodox to go along with knowing the textbook stuff too. So yeah, but Crawford more so, especially when he's southpaw, he's double jabbing to get all, usually to his right. He's double jabbing to set up an angle, left hand, right hook, something. He's looking more, you know, to use the jab as a setup. To lead to his counters, to bait counters. You jabbing with the guy, so he lets go of his backhand, he lets go of a hook, doom, doom, and then bop, 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 you come back with your counter. Spence is more, I'm punishing you with this jab, and I could beat you with this jab all night long if that's all you want to take. If you're not going to engage and give me anything to counter, anything to exchange with, if you're not going to stay in front of me and let me dig that body, if you're on your bike, I'll just cut the ring off as good as I can and batter you with that jab until I freeze you with it. Whereas, you know, so that's how I'd break that down. But I hope that was good for you. I hope you got your $5 worth, my brother. Thank you for the super chat. So now let's take a look at Errol Spence.
Shark sign out there.
Shout out to my man Ron Goodall. Let me lower this a little bit. All right. See that jab? Thudding every time he throws it. The superior fundamentals of Spence, his elbows stay tucked in a little bit better than Crawford's, and he's not as square on the inside. Now, that's okay. Squaring up a little bit on the inside is okay. Benavidez does it. Tank did it when he knocked out Leo Santa Cruz. There's a method to it, you know. But I'm just saying. Spence keeps his hands up better than Crawford. He's much more disciplined at that. And look how much busier he is. He's nonstop and so fundamentally sound. Those hands always come back to his shin. I know there was a little clip on Twitter of Derek clipping him, but... And heavy-handed. Everything snaps. Everything looks like it hurts. But Crawford has that hand speed. He has that upper body movement, and he has that suddenness. But everything Spence throws is sharp and hard. The pro to that is everything hurts. And everything looks good when it lands or even when it partially lands. The downside is you're throwing everything at one speed. And a guy like Crawford could get a beat on that. Spence extremely disciplined with putting that hand back up right there with Derek James, and that's the Derek James mitt work. Yep. Everything sounding... Oof. Punch for punch, Spence is thudding more. He's thumping more. And he's bigger. Even just watch... I love that double left hand he kept throwing. He let that double left hand go a couple of times very nicely. Yep. expecting something coming back too when he lets it go. So again, so Spence there. I might have to go to my footage because some of these camera angles are a little rough. But Spence there, relying on the gloves and the hands to block on his way in. Crawford more shifty with his upper body movement. Two different styles right there. Spence knows how to cut that ring off. You can see that here. And he's just relentless. But early on, that could be great for him. It could work to his detriment as the fight goes on. Being so busy continues to give the counterpuncher time to get your timing down, your rhythm down, your punch selection down. And you're throwing all those punches has built you a lead, but now he knows exactly what he's looking at, and you might start getting countered more and more and more as the fight progresses. I expect that to happen, but we'll see.
Did you know that there's a simple
I like to call Spence. I know he's the truth. I know he's the big fish. My name for him is he's just the Texas Bull. He's just the Texas Bull to me. Look at that jab. See, that's why, to the super chat, you see the snap, the intensity and the snap on that jab. It's more of a punishing shot. That's why Spence has the better jab. Right here. Bang. Oh, that's a head knot. That's one. Crawford was throwing jabs that are setting something up. He's throwing jabs that are going to snap your head back and swell your eye up. So as good as some of this catch and shoot stuff that Errol's doing right here, great camera angle. There we go. Thank you, Ron. But as good as some of this catch, now there's some shiftiness from Spence. He's not just staying in one. There's some shiftiness with the feet there, punching off an angle, pivoting really well right here. Pivots over, boom, beautifully. Great balance, great power on every shot. So there's some good footwork from Errol Spence. And Adrian Broner tells me how underrated Spence's footwork is. But as good as the catch and shoots are from Errol here, no upper body movement. And I know Derek James has talked in the past about that. He's cleared that up, but still, no upper body movement. Much stiffer up top, carrying all that weight, that big broad back. A little more stiff up top than Terence Crawford. But so fundamentally sound and sharp, everything coming out with good speed. Crawford's faster, but he has good speed himself. And non-stop relentlessness and great balance by Errol Spence here. Catch, uses his feet to get out of range, but no, not a lot of upper body movement. That jab, that's that jab. It's a great jab. Straight left hand, everything coming out compact, tight, sharp, and hard. Everything, and non-stop pace there. Cutting the ring off, keeping his balance while doing it. To the body, back up top. Turn his feet, straight left hand, left uppercut, right uppercut, straight left hand. Back to cutting the ring off, catch. He's a bad boy. I favor Crawford, but I wouldn't be surprised if Errol puts that Texas thump on him. I wouldn't be surprised. Everything's sharp, man. Everything's sharp. And hard. Pros and cons to both styles. Not everything Terence is throwing is going to hurt, is going to feel like it hurts. Everything Errol throws is going to feel like it hurts, but maybe a little bit more predictable. Once Crawford gauges his rhythm, his movements, his patterns, his speed, his timing, Crawford a little more difficult to get a beat on with that kind of stuff. So And beautiful work right there by Spence. We'll see how much Spence is on the money with his Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett comparison, because if he wins this fight, he was on the money with the Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett stuff, because that's exactly how he wins this fight. It's just by being more fundamentally sound and the bigger man, like Tim Duncan was more fundamentally sound and was the bigger man over the quicker, more twitchy, more athletic, more could do all these wonderful things Kevin Garnett. So if Spence wins, he was on the money with that. Still give the edge to the quicker counter puncher, even though he's the smaller, older man. But I'm not as 100% assured in my pick as I was knowing Tank was going to beat Ryan, knowing Benavidez was going to beat Plant. This is much more 50-50 when I'm picking this, but I do still give the edge to Terence. But Spence was looking tremendous here. I got a super chat from Jairus Artis and Boxman 2K3. I gotta hit up your super chats in just a second, guys. Just want to do a little bit more. Well, I could read this. Box NMM, excuse me, brother. 2K3 said, brother, I don't understand why Showtime hasn't picked you as a color commentator. Your analysis and insight are second to none. Thank you so much, man, and thank you for the 20. I'm sure you're making good money to just throw the 20 on YouTube. So thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate that. I appreciate what you have to say. And that compliments. Thank you, my man. Just happy to do it. And then the other super chat, Errol has never been in trouble or wobbled in a fight with bigger punchers than Bud. Errol throws more. He's more active. If Bud can't hurt him, how does he win the fight? I don't think he wins the fight if he can't hurt Errol Spence, because I have Bud by stoppage late in the fight, because I think if it goes to the decision, it is Errol Spence because of that activity and that work rate. And then even if it is a 6-6, 7-5 fight, either way, that activity that the judges love alongside him also being the A side, the guy who draws more money, is going to be very tough for Terence Crawford to win a decision unless he scores a knockdown late. Maybe Crawford just needs a knockdown late to seal a decision. That's the only way he could win a decision. I think he would have to score a knockdown at some point in the fight. But that is why I'm picking him by stoppage in part. I don't think he wins this fight by decision. I think it's kind of knockout or bust for Crawford. He has to find the right counter shots, the right sequence of shots time and again to hurt Errol with a shot he probably doesn't see coming in an exchange and finish him. And that's a tall order, being the smaller, older man. But Crawford, to me, has always been just a little bit more special than Spence. Kind of like I'm picking Inoue over Fulton. To me, he's got a little bit more of that it factor, that's special to him. But we'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Jairus. Appreciate it, brother. Jairus Artis Gilmore, we'll call him. Artis Gilmore. Shout out to Artis Gilmore. Samuel Washington says, Bud late, he won't have any legs or anything on his shots late. And that is the issue with, I was talking earlier. Shout out to my man BT, who talked about, well, of course counterpunchers get off to a slow start because they got to feel what the other guy's throwing at them. They got to get a beat on them. They got to see the angles that the other guy's punching from, his patterns. So it stands to reason that sometimes counterpunchers have to get off to a slow start. But with this guy, when he's touching you, your face might be swelling up, and he's touching that body consistently. So like you said, Samuel Washington, you take a chance against a guy like Spence that you don't have as much in the back end if you let him get off to a good start. So that's why Spence is thinking Crawford is going to start sooner in this fight. And if he does, that's fireworks. I came away from both workouts thinking fireworks. You know, regardless, I'm not just saying the corny shit, the fans win, and like, but regardless of who you're rooting for, don't root for your guy so hard that you're heartbroken and can't enjoy the great fight you're probably about to see if your guy, whether it's Crawford or Spence, doesn't win. Don't be so heartbroken that you don't just enjoy what's about to go down, because stylistically, I think these two guys are going to deliver. Kimani Ponce, who was that? Said, I thought you had Spence after Ugas. Why did you change your mind? No, I've always had Crawford. I've never once since Crawford got to welterweight, favored Spence. You know, maybe I just think as great as Spence is looking here, it's a little bit of chess to checkers at play. The fundamentals are incredible, and fundamentals are so. You could beat 99.9% of fighters with great fundamentals, but there's that 0.001% that you need a little bit more than that, and I suspect that Crawford is that 0.001%. So that's why I pick up. It's a little bit of that chess to checkers. You know, respectfully saying that, you know, the checkers being the fundamentals. The chess being the counterpunching, the little awkward is half hook, half uppercut, or half jab, half right hook, like he knocked out Kell Brook with. That's that little extra beyond the fundamentals. But that's why I say if Spence wins this fight, he was on the money with the Duncan Garnett thing, because that was Duncan Garnett. Garnett could do so many things that Duncan couldn't do, but he would just beat him with the fundamentals. We'll see. Charles N said fish fry July 29th. Shout out Charles N. Oh yeah. Let's go back. So yeah, that's and then let's see him dig inside for a minute here. Yeah. I don't know how much Crawford's going to want to stand in front and phone booth it with Errol. He'll definitely want to pick his spots because that's where you can hurt him as well, but consistently on the inside, Spence is a punisher. And he's so good at digging to the body and close. Two different philosophies here too. Crawford by committee. You know, 3 different guys. Errol just with Derek. This is beautiful mitt work by Derek James. The credit he always gets for his mitt work is he's simulating real fight punches. Not 4 or 5 punch shoe shine combinations hooked off by capped off by a hook like Crawford was throwing. But just because he's not going to exactly use that sequence of punches in the fight doesn't mean doing mitt work like that isn't just good for his combination punching overall and different things like that. Yeah, we got over 600 people in the chat. Shout out, chat. Thank you. Dusty Cole saying, Bud is avant-garde. Errol is straight classic. That's a good one. Oh, super chat from Christian Solis. Thank you, brother. Says, I just can't see Errol Spence getting knocked out. I mean, I can. He's very strong. He's the Texas Bull. He's a monster up top. But he's been hurt. He had a little moment of being buzzed by Kell Brook. Crawford, I think, is a better puncher than Kell Brook. He got buzzed by Ugas. Crawford's definitely a better puncher than Ugas. So Spence has shown a good chin. He's never been down, but I do think if you get caught with a shot in the exchange, in between your punches, you probably didn't see it coming. Crawford has that suddenness. Tim Bradley told me he's going to have to strike like a snake when his opportunities present himself, and that's what Terence does. He's fighting at one speed, he's looking, he's taking chances here and there, and then all of a sudden, like a snake, he strikes with something sudden and explosive with snap on the end of the shot. And you know that's how he could potentially get it, is sneaking Errol in between shots as a counterpuncher in the exchange, something Errol doesn't see coming. Errol's busy being Errol. Errol's putting combinations together. He's double jab, dig into the body, right hook, boom, and then something catches him in between his work. And that could begin the end. That could hurt him, and Crawford is a finisher. Or Errol could just beat him down and break him down, as he says, physically, mentally, damn near spiritually. Kell Brook is stronger than Crawford, but when Crawford fought Kell, he was done. Kell was done, and Kell Brook maybe is stronger than Crawford, but Crawford's a more devastating puncher when he strikes like a snake, when he turns it up a notch. What about Errol catching Bud, though? No, I mean, hey, I've talked about it. It's a big concern. Like Tank says, glass shield versus metal shield. Terence being more light in the ass, as Errol has said. That's the old-time boxing phrase. And he might get broken down. We'll see. Raider Reaper. What's up, Raider Reaper? Thank you for the super chat, brother. Said, usually we have the same pick. Truly a 50-50. I agree. Much more of a 50-50 than Tank Ryan, than Plant Benavidez. Even heading into Haney Lomachenko, and I turned out to kind of be wrong. Loma arguably won that fight, but I thought Haney would kind of not have an easy time with Loma, but win without controversy, because he was younger and bigger and ascending, as Lomachenko seemed to be descending. But this is the fight I'm the most unsure of. While I got Crawford. That is my on-the-record pick, but I won't be surprised if Spence does his thing. Spence so active on the heavy bag right here. And then again, everything hurts. Beautiful double and triple right hooks, but can he really get that off 2 or 3 at a time that often when Crawford's going to snipe something in between that? Can he stay at that one position that long and double and triple it up? But this is great. This is great fun. This is great ripping shots by Errol Spence here. This is great bag work by Spence. Again, a little stiff up top, but we'll see. Might not need it. That double hook. We'll see if he can get that off against the counters in between. Quicker hands from Crawford, who can make up a shot, make up an angle if he needs to a little bit in the middle of an exchange. But so I think you guys get it by now. You know, Spence, bigger, younger, more fundamentally sound, more active, better jab. Crawford, little shiftier with the better agility, shiftiness with the upper body movement, more dynamic, creative, unpredictable. And like I said, give the edge to Crawford, because I think 99.9% of guys, this is going to beat them. Just the great, sharp fundamentals, everything compact, everything tight, hands always coming back to the right position. But against the top 0.01%, the best of the best, you might need a little bit something extra, little extra sauce. What is Floyd Mayweather? What did Floyd call it? Special effects, right? Right? Isn't that what Floyd Mayweather used to say? He's a good fighter, but straight up and down, no special effects. And I'm not saying Terence Crawford or Errol Spence doesn't have any special effects, but Terence has more. So we'll see. We'll see. So all right, chat. Hope you guys enjoyed that quick little. What did we do? 50 minutes of that breakdown. Got about 700 people in here. I know a lot of you. I know people are at my head this week. A lot of people want to talk about the Inoue Fulton stuff. I will be back on in a few hours to discuss that. I got a big interview to do between now and that live, and I hope the interview. You never know. Sometimes interviews have to be rescheduled, so I hope it doesn't have to be rescheduled, because I want to kick off that Inoue Fulton live with that interview. It should be about 10 to 15 minutes. And then have at it, have at it. Throw whatever you want to throw my way, and we'll be here to talk. So to quickly touch on that, though, I love watching Inoue fight. I think if he wins, and I am picking him to win Tuesday morning in Japan, and not because of PEDs or anything like that. I will remind you that suspicion is not the same as accusation or guilt. So, but I think if he beats Stephen Fulton, who is definitely the best fighter in the world at 122, an absolute elite fighter who can box beautifully and has Philly grit and will stay in there and outfight you on the inside. Great hand speed, IQ, everything. Checks almost every box. Not a puncher, but checks just about every box. Naturally bigger guy. So if Inoue does win that fight Tuesday, he is at least for half a week. At least half a week. Maybe more, depending on how Crawford or Spence look. You got to compare and contrast the best fighter in the world in boxing. But we'll talk about that later on today on the second live. So, but chat, what you guys think, man? Red said we're all on steroids. I don't give a fuck at this point. Yeah. Cue John Witherspoon's rant on steroids. I love that rant. So yeah, chat. That was fun rocking with about 700 people for that quick film study. Mindag13 says, how can Bud win a decision? Thank you for the super chat, brother. How can Bud win a decision with his slow start? By scoring knockdowns late. If he can't get Spence out of there, he could still win a decision, I think, if he scores some knockdowns late to offset the consistency, the activity, and maybe what will be a good start, a fast start for Errol Spence. So if he can't get him out of there, I think Spence is going to have to touch the canvas for Crawford to win this fight, whether it's for a 10 count or whether it's for a knockdown or 2 knockdowns. Spence just gets off to a better start than Crawford. When you're a counterpuncher and you're a creative guy, they both get better as the fight progresses. But it's Crawford. Crawford gets more creative. Spence too. He pulls into his bag a little deeper too. Starts doing some things too beyond just 1-2 body. He starts pivoting off, shooting uppercuts, the left uppercut primarily. Gets his right hook going, but yeah, I think that Crawford, the way he wins a decision is he's got to get a knockdown or 2 late. And I can see that happening because Spence is so tough, even if you catch him and hurt him and follow it up and drop him, he's a tough Texas bull. He'll get up, beat the canvas, and keep fighting, or beat the count and keep fighting. So to answer your question, Mindag13, I think Crawford probably only wins a decision if he could get a knockdown at some point, probably late in the fight. So we'll see. What was that other super chat? Yeah, okay, it was Raider Reaper. Thank you, brother. And Molly Mall, what's up, Molly Mall? Much love to Seattle Boxing Talk too, man. But Molly Mall, is there a coaching advantage in this fight? It would appear so. It would. I think Bomac. People forget how good a job Bomac did with Jamel Herring. The Bomac camp. Bomac, Red, Isao Diegas. But Crawford's a little bit more the captain there, and they go by his beat. Spence and Derek James have a little bit more of that traditional coach fighter role, where it's like, Derek's a little bit more of the boss, and it's just Derek. Whereas Crawford's the boss, and it's 3 voices, primarily Bomac, but also Red and Isao. So you could definitely, it's probably a better argument that, yeah, Spence has the better corner. But don't forget what Bomac did with Jamel Herring. Jamel Herring was, kind of left for dead in his career, and he beats Ito at 130 to win the belt. And I know Carl Frampton retired right after, but he boxed extremely well against Carl Frampton. And then for Derek James, I give him the edge. He's the better trainer on paper and everything, but he's probably. I respect both of them. That's not a slight to Derek. I just both think they've done good work and are good trainers. Derek deserves to be recognized as the slightly, as the better trainer for now. And I think Derek is an excellent trainer. But one of the talking points of why Derek James is so much better is what a deep stable. Well, Frank Martin was really good before he got to Derek James. Had almost 15 fights. And most of the things you see Frank Martin do with Derek James, he was doing before Derek James, and now Derek has added to him and improved him. And then Jermell Charlo, who had his best performance against Castaño last May, he gave a lot of that credit to Joan Guzman as well. And if you go back and watch that fight, stylistically, he fought a more like a Joan Guzman than an Errol Spence, than a Derek James, patented style. And then you look at Anthony Joshua and Ryan Garcia, and they're newcomers. He hasn't, now back to Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo was getting around a 50% knockout ratio in non-title fights before he got to Derek James. Then he got to Derek James and has won all but the Austin Trout fight. When he wins his championship fights, they're all by knockout, except for Austin Trout, I believe. So Derek James has done amazing with Jermell Charlo. He's made him he's undisputed. Derek James has done phenomenal with Jermell Charlo. But in that last fight, I saw a lot of Joan Guzman's imprint in that performance. And then I liked Anthony Joshua's fight with Jeremiah Franklin. I could see the building blocks forming with Derek James, getting him to catch and shoot, getting him to be more dominant behind his jab with his lead hand, better distance control. But still, that's an unproven alliance at the championship level, and so is the Ryan Garcia alliance. So, and then people forget about the Jamel Herring makeover, the Rob Brandt. Rob Brandt beat Ryoto Murata to become a world champion. So Bomac's done some kind of unheralded work with guys like Jamel Herring and Rob Brandt. And then even Keyshawn Davis, he doesn't train him, but he works with him at times and helps him as well. So, but yeah, there is you would think a slight coaching advantage for Errol Spence and Derek James. So, Jermaine Franklin. Thank you, Weedy Gonzalez. I said Jeremiah. Thank you. Jermaine Franklin. What's up, Weedy? What's up, Weedy Gonzalez? School of Skills saying 3 is always better than 1. Well, I mean, that's an old phrase, right? 2 heads are better than 1. But there's also the phrase too many chefs in the kitchen. So we'll see. We'll see. But, is there a chance Errol or Terence retire after this fight? I think it's more likely from Crawford, but I mean, there could always be some unforeseen brutal punishment, like in the the Nigel Benn, Gerald McClellan fight back in the day, where McClellan was never the same after that fight because of how brutal it was. So you never know, depending on what happens. But I don't think either guy's retiring. I think that. Thank you, Weedy. Thank you, brother. And I will. But I think that Spence is thinking, Spence is he's had to have think, I want that Canelo fight and all that money and the big fight, prize fight with Canelo. And for Crawford, I think if anyone's more likely to retire after, it would be Crawford. But he's contractually obligated to a rematch. But I actually have had fighters 2-3 years ago tell me that Crawford told them, and these are very well-known fighters, who told me that Crawford told them, I'm going to get this Spence fight and I'm going to retire. So if anyone's more likely to retire, maybe it's Terence. He is older. And if he beats Spence, he's cemented. He has validated his whole career. People will be less likely to bring up that 140 was a weak undisputed if he beats Spence and becomes undisputed 47. Now all the accomplishments just fall in line. They're cemented as opposed to questioned by beating Errol Spence. So he could retire and hang him up and walk away from the game, all-time great at that moment. So I think it's more likely Crawford would leave than Spence. But you never know. Spence, too, all the punishment he took from the car accident, and he could be close as well. So we'll see. I would love if the winner has to fight Jaron Ennis at some point. I think it's more likely Crawford would fight Ennis because Spence, if he wins, I think he's looking towards 68 in Canelo. And if Crawford wins, I think he's thinking staying at 47, maybe at 54 with a Jermell or a Tim Tszyu or something. So, but we shall see. So let me see. There wasn't that much. These guys are just ready to talk with their fists. There wasn't a whole lot to pull from them talking. I mean, they didn't have much to say. And so normally I would come here and I'd maybe play a little bit of a interview recap. I mean, maybe Terence Crawford rapping along to Shed So Many Tears, Tupac is a cool moment to share, but yeah.
He's wearing a true classic tee.
I could not. I'll agree. I was singing along the lyrics with Terence. I'll agree. It's not the most professional thing in the world, but if you play Tupac So Many Tears, I will have to. My mouth will start moving. There were some people in the comments saying that was so real corny of me saying against all odds like Pac, but I hope you guys know that that's an actual, Tupac song, and it's just I know Bud loves that song and everything. So, but yeah. So all right, guys, but yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot of talking to go through and everything. So, but that was it. Went through the tape study. And if there's anything else, you guys, the angry casual fan. No, I did not. I've been trained for 2 decades now to always skip that word in the verses. So, at least, when I'm singing along. That would have been a major issue for me growing up. So, yeah. If I Die Tonight, my favorite Tupac song. My favorite's probably Against All Odds, just because the man said it himself. It's the realest shit he ever wrote. So I'm like, okay, I'm all ears. You picking Crawford because Spence beat Porter, says Carl Brown. Carl Brown. I don't know if anyone told you this, but Terence Crawford also beat Sean Porter, and he actually knocked him out as opposed to beat him by decision. So I don't, Carl Brown. I think you've been in the chat before. Much love to you, Carl Brown, but that doesn't particularly make any kind of sense because Sean also lost to Terence. I love Sean, but it doesn't bother me. It's boxing. Like, one guy has to win and one guy has to lose. So, good call. All right, we'll show. Everyone knows that Blasphemy. Yeah, exactly. Mike D. Leonardo Jr. Blasphemy got to be a top 5, at least top 10 Tupac song. Okay, so let's, so everybody knows how Errol Spence got that fish tattooed on him. Or shark, excuse me. And let's go ahead and, actually explain the big fish mentality. Why? Because the man took the big fish, persona so serious that he's got the shark tatted on him. So I asked him, like, he really went all out with that, and he explains it. And there's actually a deeper explanation than I was expecting to give him. It was actually one of the times he opened up the most with us throughout the build-up to this fight was explaining the tattoo. So let's listen.
He always behaved since day one. He's trying to be humble now.
Here we go.
He a hype man. He a bum ass hype man. That's what he do. Probably be cleaning the floors and shit, just get some money. That's what he do.
Thanks, guys. You got to roll, guys.
My mom and my daddy, my girl.
Oh, your girls are so sweet. I'll never forget that. If people don't know, he sang Disney songs with me.
Shout out Cynthia and Lily, getting them talking about the tattoos, which was perfect because I wanted to ask him about that shark tattoo. Not that it's like, well, what's so important? What's the substance there? It's just a tattoo. But it's the big, he's obviously taking it very seriously. So the big fish persona, it's not just a gimmick. He got it tatted on him. So let's hear it.
Mom, dad.
Shark.
What made you fully commit to the shark? Like, I'm really taking this big fish all the way.
Oh, I mean, that's basically what I am. That's what I do. I attack.
That's what I am. That's what I do. I attack. He's telling you, yeah, you guys call me predictable. Stop it. I'm coming straight at you like a Texas bull.
This don't have nothing to do with just the sharks. It's a man basically keeping his head above, trying to keep his head above. You know how hard it is? We got clothes on, trying to stay afloat. The water, you can imagine, all right? It's hard as hell here to see. So this is a man in the world trying to keep his head above water. And struggling to keep his head above water. It's like a man take care of his family, trying to keep his head above water.
And below, the sharks are temptation. So Spence is explaining that man right below his chest is he's the man trying to keep his head above water from all the swarming predators below, which is symbolizing temptation. You know, fame, drugs, women, all that.
Different temptations, different things. They're gonna get him if you don't keep his head above water.
That if you don't stay above it, you know, you could get eaten by those temptations. Cool moment there by Errol. It sucked because the gym was so loud I didn't actually hear what he was saying. I was just nodding along like an idiot a little bit, and then it wasn't until I got home and listened back to it that I was like, oh, Errol actually kind of gave me something there. But so that's about it though, chat. If you got anything else, Mike D. Leonardo said, good to hear you are from Bensonhurst. Yes, sir, Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge in the house. East New York, Brooklyn, the 5 boroughs, NYC. Shout out. Charles N is talking his shit. You know I got love for you, Charles N. Fish fry. Charles N, letting it be known. Weedy Gonzalez says crawfish boil. Most of my regulars have got Errol Spence. Jerry Thomas, what's your prediction? Rewind a bit, Jerry, if you want the real in-depth stuff. But I do favor Crawford. More dynamic, a little more shiftier, add more agility with the upper body stuff. Faster hands when he explodes. But I wouldn't be surprised if Spence wins because everything he throws hurts. And he's more fundamentally sound. He's bigger, he's younger, he's more active, and he has a better jab. The jab's the best punch in boxing. But him throwing everything hard can make him predictable over the course of 12 rounds for Crawford, who's got that great IQ. And essentially, you know, like I'll say it again, the big reason why I give the edge to Crawford, 99.9% of guys, those fundamentals are going to take care of that. But there's that 0.01% where you need something little special on top of it, a little something extra, and I think Crawford might be that 0.01%. We'll find out next Saturday. So we'll see. Raymel Leonard said Bud fan's gonna be hurt, man. I'm not gonna lie, you know, I don't like picking fights wrong, especially not the biggest fight of the last several years. So if you see me a little sad that Crawford loses, it's not because it's a personal thing. Like I wanted Crawford to win and I don't like Spence. It's more like, damn, I picked the biggest fight of the year wrong. I feel kind of stupid. That's all. But we'll see. I typically have a good track record with these things. Very good. So we'll see. But yeah, guys, tune in later tonight. I'll be back on to talk Inoue Fulton. We'll probably have a very special guest to lead off the live with. And then come at me. Shoot your arrows. Come at me. Do whatever you want. And we'll be ready to talk all about the monster and Stephen Fulton in that great fight. You know, you could argue just as great. Maybe you're looking forward to that even more than Crawford Spence. I hear you if you are. I'm pretty equal excitement for both. But we'll see. So check back in a few hours. And let's talk Inoue. Let's talk Inoue Fulton. Let's get it in. Much love. See you guys later today. Oh, shout out to Skin Love SK for the last super chat here saying a crash couldn't stop Spence. Also, bro breaks faces. Fair enough. Thank you for the super chat, brother. But all right, guys. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for all 700 of you that rocked out. And check back in